As you know, the great St. Ignatius athletic event, Wildcats Roar, it will be all virtual in this unprecedented year that has been 2020. And with Wildcats Roar typically comes a wonderful night in St. Ignatius athletics with the Hall of Fame induction. And this year, 4 wonderful inductees. They will be formally inducted in the 2021 edition of Wildcats Roar with the ceremony over at the Breen Center that we've all come to know and love. But before we do that, we're still going to go down memory lane. We're going to look back at some of the best moments, some of the best coaches, the teachers, all that stuff. We've got a couple of the Hall of Famers in our 2-part series. We start with a pair of them. It's Matt Roggenburk from the class of 1986. He played baseball, basketball, tennis, and then a great swimmer from the class of 1997. It's Steve Kemmerling joining us. And guys, congratulations on heading into the St. Ignatius Wildcats Hall of Fame in athletics. And Matt, I'll start with you. What comes to mind when you think about your experience as a St. Ignatius High School student athlete?
Yeah, well, look, it's been a little while, right? But some of those memories are pretty fond in the back of my mind, right? I mean, when I think about those memories, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is the faculty, at Ignatius, just tremendous faculty that you're exposed to. I appreciate the sacrifices my parents made, first of all, to send me to St. Ignatius, and certainly the folks that just took the time in the classroom with me certainly comes to mind. Obviously, the Jesuits had a big role in my development there. Father Serva was the first class I had my sophomore year, because I actually enrolled Ignatius my sophomore year, and what a tremendous man. The impact was just right away, right? He was just a great teacher, great role model, and really enjoyed his class. And then the other memories, I think, equally as important is the students that I interacted with, the teammates. One thing that's so unique about, I think, Ignatius is the camaraderie that you have, not just the athletes and the teams that you play on, but by the exposure to a diversity of kids that truly are many friends today, and people that I admire, both of what they've done professionally and as men for others, and also family men. So those experiences, boy, I wouldn't trade them for a second.
Steve, how would you describe the parallels between that day from 8 to 3 when you're in the classroom, what you're seeing in instruction from your teachers, to when you get off school and you head over to the pool to swim, and what you got from your coaches and your teammates?
Yeah, it was being swimming. We actually got to swim before and after school. So we would go swim from 6 to 7:30, or have dry lands and weights, and then head into school. And that was always the experience. If you guys imagine a group of high school boys driving from CSU or Tri-C to Ignatius to try to get to first period on class after sitting at McDonald's and eating however much food we can shove down our mouth. So that was just getting up to class. Matt's I think a much more refined speaker than I am, so I did everything that Matt said first of all. But very, very supportful faculty, camaraderie on the swim team. Every team is its own kind of microcosm or universe, if you will. So that made it easy for me coming to Ignatius, kind of having a pre-built group of friends and colleagues, and obviously the teachers and staff at Ignatius are supportful of the academic and athletic rigor that goes into both of those, while you're not letting you don't get any extra slack at all as an athlete, or I didn't. As a swimmer, I don't know, at Ignatius. So, but they did appreciate that. Ignatius does aim for well-rounded individuals, and definitely not something you get at many other schools, public or private. So, again, I second what Matt said. But the before school, after school, during school, I just remember being tired for 4 years, and how easy college was after Ignatius. Frankly, everything was super easy after Ignatius.
and you heading to SMU, their wonderful swimming program. And I can imagine that there was some preparation there, because swimming before, I don't know how the heck swimmers do it with before you're then in class all day. And what language did you take?
4 years of Latin.
Yeah, 4 years of Ignatius Latin after back in the pool.
Yeah.
I'd say
I was tired.
And you won some championships in the process of doing it. I'm curious, Matt, for you, we talk about the Ignatius experience being athletics, but so much more than that, with service and different groups. And if you were in any of those, I'd love to hear about them as well. But you were always in a season with basketball. You talk about baseball. You talk about tennis, Matt, that you also experience different team atmospheres. Tennis is different than hoops. What did you see just in the development of different friend groups being on those different teams?
Yeah, well, I think, John, you hit it on the head. I think, I had a very special group of teammates on the basketball team that many are friends to this day. But then as I kind of moved over to tennis, it was a whole nother group, and more time to spend with, that group of friends, supportive. Jim Cogan was our coach, just a tremendous, motivator and communicator. And so I was lucky, I was fortunate. And I guess that's the thing I take out of this. I really don't remember what I did in a lot of the games, or, the points you scored, rebounds. It was the time leading up to the games, the excitement in the lunchroom before we're playing St. Joe's, or all that stuff leading up to it, or the maybe the celebration after in the locker room. Like those are the things that stick in my mind. It's not the other stuff. But to your point, John, I was extremely grateful with being meeting friends on both sets of those teams.
Steve, you just talked about those swimming friends you had. Beyond the pool, what else would you define as your Ignatius experience in terms of things you were involved in?
In terms of interscholastic or intramural, not much, given the life of a swimmer. I don't think it's much different than being a multi-sport athlete, but swimming is, at that point, really in high school, it's a year-round. So we would get 2 months off after states before I start training for summer, and 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks between the end of summer and the start of high school. So that was one downside, is I probably didn't get to experience as much of what Ignatius offers. I'm sure I could have, maybe, if I tried harder. There was one of my teammates, Brian Scocco, did everything. I don't know how he managed to do that. He might've been valedictorian too. But there's a wealth of options there for those who maybe have a bit more. I was just very, very focused on swimming. But I remember specifically something like sophomore service, because that is built into the day. So that was something I did get to do, being extremely memorable. I didn't really come in with much of a spiritual or Christian background, frankly, but that grew a lot during my time there. So it's just, the whole environment was truly unique, even if I didn't get to experience as much as I could have.
I'll stay with you, Steve. Let's talk about coaches. Which coach or coaches played an influence on your life?
Yeah, I was lucky to have 2 swim coaches. And again, since I only played one sport, but I managed to have 2 swim coaches during my time period there. My coach my freshman year was Mike Lado, who actually was the coach. You would know this, John, but he was actually the Ignatius coach the past few years. He went and coached after my freshman year, CSU. He became the women's coach full time. So Mike Lado was a big influence. And then the second coach I had was Rob Salisbury, who coached, I guess, about 10 years, starting my sophomore year. And actually, they were both of them were my club coaches before Ignatius. So the swimming community is pretty darn small in Northeast Ohio. So one or both of them, I had additional club coaches, but during my time at Ignatius, both of them were fundamental to my growth.
Matt, I was reading up on you, and I believe I saw the influence that the man, the myth, the legend, because he played an influence on my Ignatius experience, Larry Arthur. How would you define your relationship with Coach Arthur?
Yeah, absolutely. And John, before I say that, the other thing I did want to make mention of is my sophomore year, I was involved in sophomore service also, like Steven. And believe it or not, they sent me to the Cleveland Psychiatric Institute. That was the place for a young man for me to go. And maybe there was a subtle message behind that they were having to deal with. But boy, that memory with going down there, taking the bus, and then the bus back to Ignatius was unforgettable. But in terms of the coaches that influenced me, look, pretty simple, John. Like you mentioned, Larry was Larry came in. He was the new coach. It was his first year in 80. I guess would have been like 85, I believe it was. And he was just, he came in eyes wide open. You talk about just a super communicator. He had a way to be soft spoken, but he knew how to kick you when he needed to. And certainly I needed a little bit of that from a kid that probably thought he knew it all at that age. So, Larry and his assistant, Frank O'Brien, were just a great working relationship. They worked well together. They seemed to always pull the right plays at the right time. In terms of how they prepared was exceptional. And we all loved playing for Frank O'Brien and also Larry. We loved him. And to this day, I have tremendous respect for him. Tremendous.
All right, it's time for a part where stories can come out and just take on their own lives. Steve, tell me about your teammates.
Which one?
I'm not going to ask you to pick a favorite, but I'm sure you've got stories you can unveil.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, all the sports are pretty big, especially if you're on a football or baseball team. But the swimming team typically has 30 plus or minus. So, coming as a freshman, you got 3 classes above you, then you got 3 classes behind you. I was very fortunate in my class. I could have potentially been the only swimmer in my class, but luckily, similar to Matt, we had 2 transfers in my sophomore year. And Adam Van Arsdale and Josh Bateman, Adam from the West Side and Josh from Kirtland. So I was very lucky to have those 2 guys to transfer in and swim with me. Brian Scottco was the only other 4-year freshman to senior year swimmer. So got to know those guys, was very lucky. But I mean, there was just a plethora of swimmers before and after me. Guys who, again, the swimming world is very small in Cleveland. So a lot of the guys I was swimming with on club team before I came to Ignatius were already going to Ignatius. So that was a big function of why I chose Ignatius, or was lucky to get into Ignatius. And then, swimmers follow swimmers. So Hall of Famer Todd Minier, another swimmer. He 2 years younger than myself. I followed Matt Schlesman, who's another Hall of Famer swimmer who was 2 or 3 years older than myself. But I mean, I could give you a laundry list of names. Even now, guys who are swimming who I don't think I'm getting close to being where there's kids swimming there who could be my son's age if I had a son, that type of thing. But I don't give you a laundry list of names.
Matt, I'll give you the floor. Teammates that come to mind in your career, because I know that they've got stories about you. So this is your chance.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't doubt that. Yeah, I mean, of course, the couple, quick story that comes to mind, but like Steve, I mean, when I was a junior, the seniors really set the stage for us. The Wilhelms, the Wise, Joe Bain, the Kalishes, those were the guys that were ahead of me that I really looked up to and learned from them. And then, of course, my teammates, Kevin Cook, Mark Harmody, Jimmy Lawless, guys that come to mind were just remain friends, like I said today. I guess the one story I remember is Lawless. This was back in the day before we had iPhones. And so the way you communicated when you were driving was the CD, right? but we had the Ignatius vans going down to Dayton Elder, and the coaches I think went into like a convenience store, and the CB was on, and of course Jimmy Lawless grabbed the CB, and the rest remains history. I don't know if I can repeat the conversation he had with I think one of the truckers, but it will go down as one of the best all-time favorites. He was a professional on the CB, I'll tell you.
Well, did you know that Jim is a professional question asker? He's a tad long-winded, but we brought him
yes,
in
he
here.
is.
We brought him in here today, and we've got a surprise for you.
No way.
Jimmy Lawless has a surprise for you here this afternoon.
Hey, Matt. I want to congratulate you on being inducted into this year's Hall of Fame. Well-deserved and long time coming. When I was asked if I could share a memory of our days at Ignatius, I thought about it, and there's a lot I could tell, a lot you probably wouldn't want me to tell, but I could certainly tell them. But I go back to the first time we met. There was an open gym being held in Sullivan Gymnasium. And all we were hearing about for months before was this stud from Florida coming in and what a great player he was. His dad was some amazing player in his day as well. Played at Ignatius, played at Dayton, and Matt was supposed to be just like him. But by first appearance, you sure didn't look that part. There's a skinny kid in the corner dressed in tennis gear. Literally tennis gear. Had the white McEnroe shorts, the ones with pockets. Pretty obscene. Short shorts. Tennis shoes, low cut. Had the tennis socks, kind of weird looking. Anyhow, you were spinning the ball on your finger, sitting behind the hoop, taking shot after shot over the backboard, making most of them. As I'm stretching, getting ready to take the floor, thinking to myself, when in the world do you do either of those things in a game? How good could this kid be? Until he takes the floor. Real soon after, myself and everyone in the gym realized this kid's the real deal. He could play. That's Matt. Very low key, very cool. Matt always stood out on the court. He took scoring honors in most every game, thanks to me for dishing most of the assists to him. But in typical Matt fashion, which is true to this day, he never takes credit for it. He always would credit another teammate for an assist, a rebound, defensive stop, whatever. But always took the attention off himself, which is true to this day. He still gives credit to everyone else. That quality is one of the reasons he's had success in everything he does. Rogs, I'd like to thank you for being a great teammate and a great friend for 30 plus years. I know you've had some great coaching over the years, but I know you'll credit your dad as being your favorite coach. He taught you everything on and off the court. Now you will be side by side with him in the Hall of Fame. Not many could say that. How cool is that? Congrats, Rogs. We love you.
Thank you.
That's just a great. It's all about the friendship there. We need some old pictures of the McEnroe shorts.
He's wearing them now.
That's the good stuff there. That's the good stuff. Thanks to Jimmy Lawless for that tribute. And Matt, the Roggenburk family, we talk about your dad there, and you have had the privilege of having your sons go to St. Ignatius. Just how cool is that for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's special, right? It's a special place. Since I was a kid, it's where I wanted to go. Since when my son, I remember him growing up and going to St. Raphael's, and the day he walked into St. Raphael's, it was like gearing up and getting ready to go to Ignatius, and it was it was everything that we thought it would be. And I think, you know, he would tell you that to this day. It's just amazing place to grow your faith. And it's an amazing place to just meet some incredible people that you have lifetime friends.
Steve, let's go into the classroom with you. I know you said you seemingly remember some more of those state championship moments in swimming more so than that homework, but who are the teachers that come to mind?
I remember my English teachers, and this I'm definitely playing to the crowd, but I think Father Giao was my freshman English teacher, Mrs. Schenkelberg, Coach Kyle, I think was it Mr. Thomas? So I remember a lot of my English teachers, math teachers, just a lot of great teachers. Like it was, I liked all of them. I'm trying to remember all of my Latin teachers throughout 4 years. Just, I don't have the best memory, which is ironic for all the Latin I took, but it was, you said Father Serva. Was he biology? Am I making that up? I remember him. We called him Father Muscle, I think.
Yeah.
So Father Muscle, and I was trying to remember his name earlier. I loved him. Yeah, no, you did it. You know, there's just, you know, they're all great. It's, you know, my personality doesn't get along well with most science teachers for some reason, but for some reason, Father Serva got me. So, but it was English was great. And I guess Coach Kyle didn't coach me per se, but he was definitely there as well. You know, even in the classroom. So you were never far from, you know, that type of again, support or coaching, whether it was in the classroom or in the pool or down in the weight room, or Coach Michaels from PE, who's we butted heads a lot too, but lots of memorable teachers.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, there's a rumor swirling around Ignatius Athletics that you might be the first Hall of Fame inductee that knowingly got his diploma prematurely. And I say that because that's where our question comes from next, and it comes from Father Giao, which I'm so glad that you complimented him because it's a great segue. As Father Giao has told us just this afternoon as we are doing this interview, that he had you in English, 1, so that was your freshman year, and he remembers you being a very academically strong student, Steve, but he did notice that there is a missing assignment from you from October 1994 on To Kill a Mockingbird. So with that said, I'm really curious as well because I need a refresh. Can you please analyze the childhood world of Jem, Scout, and Dill and their relationship with Boo Radley in part 1?
No.
Well, that...
I think that must have been my response in 1994 as well. I'm consistent.
Oh, well, he said that he's missing that assignment. So if you could get to work on that before the formal induction, which is now in 2021, maybe we know the real reason why things are postponed next summer is because you owe him an assignment.
I'm a quarter credit short.
Quarter credit short. In all seriousness, what kind of impact did Father Giao have on your life?
I think it was even my homeroom teacher. I think English. I think he was my homeroom teacher. So again, for a non-Catholic, not particularly spiritual person coming to Ignatius, a little nervous about that whole segment of the school. I don't think you could have. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching to the choir here, but he was a great freshman year, first period homeroom teacher. Just a very caring, open, charismatic. Man, you know, highly educated, but could sit down and talk to you, supportful. It's ironic, coincidental, serendipitous, grace, whatever you want to call it, but it's true that he was, I think, my first teacher at Ignatius.
That all the more reason to get that assignment in. Come on, Matt, I think you got all your assignments in, which when you do, you get that polo that you got on.
Yeah, the jury's still out on some of the assignments, but I'm hoping that after 30+ years, they can't go that far back. I want to mention, though, as you were talking about and I was talking a little bit about my son, is I'd obviously be remiss not to mention my father having a big instrumental piece in terms of my development, both as a young man growing up, and obviously he's in a class of his own at Ignatius, as far as I'm concerned. And so, he was tremendously supportive, a big role model to me, not even so much as an athlete, which was just an incredible athlete, but as a father figure, and the way that he approached his life with faith and family. I owe everything to him.
It's really awesome. And when you think about that type of influence that has been passed on from your dad to you, and now you having the opportunity to do it with your kids, I think that and the way that St. Ignatius High School enhances that, because all the things that you learned from your dad, Matt, I'm sure you saw the workings of St. Ignatius High School through him that you see today with your kids.
Yeah, no, it's so true, and they draw that out of you, right? And of course you see it, you see it modeled every day. I mean, that's such the impressive piece, is that, these teachers and the faculty, they walk the walk. I mean, when you're exposed to the Brian Beckers, Mr. Skirl, Mr. Dibbets I had in theology, many of the Jesuits, John Kleinhens taught me algebra. God bless him. I mean, he did his best with me. But, I mean it. They just, the pieces and the modeling that you saw every day was just worth the price of admission, no doubt.
Steve, we've got another question coming in from a special guest. This comes from St. Ignatius Athletic Director Rory Fitzpatrick, the class of 1988. And Rory talks about that swimming community in Northeast Ohio. You referenced it just now, and it's kind of a small world. And as he said, Ohio is one of the best swimming states competitively in the country. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some of the relationships, the friendships you started because of the opportunities you had to compete against some of those best swimmers in the nation?
Yeah, it's even start with Ignatius. I'm trying to think. In the 80s, so I was probably swimming club team, and knowing some of the Ignatius swimmers, again, because of how small of a community it was in Northeast Ohio. But it was tremendous. Cleveland, Cincinnati, Ohio, other than Texas, Florida, and California, is arguably one of the strongest swimming states. I have no idea. We're just lucky that it is. But Northeast Ohio, a number of Olympians came out of there around my time, a little bit before, a little bit after, a number coming out of Cincinnati as well. So, whether it's Ignatius as your home ground, the farm where you're grown, or the community of Ohio, it's hard to get that good in a vacuum. So, both within the confines of Ignatius and Northeast Ohio and Ohio as a whole, the times that I went or the places that I got which were, national rankings, theoretically world rankings at the time, was due to the environment. So I was looking hard at some other schools, US or Hawken, but very, very glad that Ignatius is where I landed for a number of reasons beyond just swimming. So I could go on about that, but I won't.
Now, Steve, I want to turn to the day that you got the call that you would be a St. Ignatius Athletics Hall of Famer. What was that day like?
It was totally unexpected. So that was great. And it was a voicemail from Father Guillao. So I had to listen a couple times to make sure I was hearing it right. It was great.
Assignment back.
Yeah, that was what he's like. I'm looking for this book report you owe me. So, no, it was great. Having an iPhone, you're able to forward, voicemails. So I could forward voicemail to my parents and to my sister, and had my wife listen. I think I forwarded it to Adam Van Arsdale, who I mentioned earlier, one of my teammates who I think nominated me, among others. So it was just a special moment, and I'll keep that voicemail and, stash it away. Then I texted Father Gow. I don't even know if I called him back. I think I texted him back because you can do that these days. So it was great, just a real surprise, and something you kind of hope for, but I try to keep your ego in check. Like, well, I feel like I could maybe qualify. So it's just exciting to see it come to fruition, and then bumped a year.
Right. Matt, what about you? What was that like?
It was pretty special, right? Kevin Cook, who I played with, called me, and it was very unexpected, quite frankly, because I talked to Kevin occasionally, and he called me. This was prior to the COVID-19. He said, this was probably like in maybe last year at some point. He said, what are you doing on August 29th of 2020 or something? I said, geez, Kevin, I don't know. And he said, how about make sure you save the date because you're going into the Hall of Fame. And I thought, wow, I was shocked, right? I mean, you don't expect to go into the Hall of Fame. It's something you think about, but I guess what it did, it started to make me actually realize how many great student athletes have gone and are part of that Hall of Fame. And then my second thought was just being very appreciative of the people that really helped me get there, because could have never have done it without the support of many, many teammates, much of the staff, the Jesuits, the people that I was, I was lucky. I was truly lucky. And there's people that were very instrumental in getting me there. And then, of course, the last thing I thought about was, being next to my dad, right? That'll always be special.
Absolutely. Matt, you see it with your kids. Steve, you've talked about it with just the swimming community and the bond that you share with your teammates. And I'll start with you, Steve. What advice or insight would you give to those current St. Ignatius student athletes, the swimmers and beyond, about the 4-year experience of participating in a sport in Ignatius?
Wow, that's a deep one. Is this current athletes or future or to the world?
Well, obviously our world's in unprecedented times, but
Yeah.
For those guys that are getting ready either for their 4 years on the swim team, or maybe for anybody, those upperclassmen who might be wrapping up their career soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's cliche, but it's true. Treasure the time while you're there. For a lot of guys, they don't swim after high school too. I was lucky enough to swim through 4 years of college as well. So it's, whether it's the athletics or just Ignatius as a whole, treasure that time. Be thankful for what it is, because sometimes you don't realize how special it is until later or much later in your life, after you've seen a little bit more of the world and realize a lot of things aren't that supportive or grateful. It's, Ignatius swimming and academics, it gets easier, as I kind of referenced at the beginning. Some people have trouble with college, but coming out of Ignatius, I mean, a true prep school, collegiate prep school in the academic sense, but going to college after Ignatius was, I'd say college was easy, but given the rigor and the timeline of a day in a high school student Ignatius versus college, where you have 2 or 3 classes a day, it prepares you for a lot. It makes it gets easier, I would say, if I had to sum it up.
When you went off to SMU, Matt, you kept the Jesuit ties going as a Creighton Blue Jay out in Omaha, but what would be your advice to those student athletes, whether they're about to embark on the 4 years or maybe for that senior who wraps up this year?
Yeah. Look, I think for the seniors or anybody participating in sports as a student athlete, I think it's a couple of things. One is, be as good as you can be. When it comes to your sport, if it's basketball, if you're in the swimming pool, I mean, you get one shot at this. And I think, take the time to work hard, to practice, and be as great as you can be. That would be my first piece of advice. The second is, not in any particular order, but be a great teammate. If you're on a team sport, be a great teammate. You don't necessarily have to be in every game or play every play. I can think of so many kids that were so influential, that sat on the bench, the water boys, the managers that were just tremendous, influential people. And so, yeah, be a great teammate. And then lastly is, spiritually, don't take for granted what Ignatius has taught you. And that has gone a long way for me, both professionally and spiritually. I think that that relationship that you have, with God, with what Ignatius stands for, don't take that for granted. Make it a big part of your life.
Well, it's easy to see why you both are Hall of Famers, because hearing that perspective is powerful. And I think it's something that all the Wildcats out there, both past and present and future, can all take and run with going forward in not only athletics, but whatever they are doing. Matt, Steve, congratulations on your induction to the St. Ignatius Wildcats Hall of Fame. And thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, John. Steve, congratulations.
You too,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Absolutely. And we want to thank Matt and Steve, our series revving up, 2 parts with the Hall of Famers. Thanks again to these guys for joining us today. And to support the future of St. Ignatius Athletics, we want to let you know that you can please head to www.ignatius.edu/Wildcats Roar to make a gift to the Father Sullivan Fund for Athletics. The Sullivan Fund is named in honor of the late Reverend William A. Sullivan, who was a famed faculty member and athletic administrator at St. Ignatius. Proceeds from today's Virtual Wildcats Roar will support all 16 of our varsity sports, in addition to offsetting the annual needs of our athletic department. So again, for the Hall of Famer, Matt Roggenburk of basketball, baseball, tennis, a swimming Hall of Famer, Steve Kemmerling, I'm John Fanta, saying go Cats, and thanks for watching.